Health certainly plays a really large part from multiple perspectives in retirement. When you're thinking about retirement, it plays a really big part in terms of like costs for health insurance, for long-term care, for life insurance, for all those different things. But it also plays a big part in terms of how much life you might think you have to live and some decisions around that can impact you. You are absolutely making a guess about how long you think you might live. And most people, and most financial planners, I guess I will say, number one, want to overestimate how long you're going to live because they want to be sure you're not going to run out of money. So that, in a way, becomes an issue. And then there's also like you personally thinking about your own health. Like we ask the question all the time, like, how long did your mom live? How long did your dad live? Like, do you have any things in your family that might impact you? How do you think about your health? How do you think about what you want to do in retirement in that time frame? And there's a lot of different answers from people. Some people want to live as much life as possible while they're healthy, and that has an impact on their finances and their spending. And they don't want to wait until they can't do anything to start living, right? And so some people are so scared of running out of money that they actually never do anything. And so then you have the other people that, feel like, hey, I'm going to die any day now. So, I want to make sure I spend as much as possible. And so there's this whole thing and this whole, I guess, a question and answer that we got to go through to sort of figure out how people think about that, associate risks in terms of planning around longevity, and come to a place that works for everyone. So Medicare, when you sign up for Medicare, let's just keep it simple. You typically do that at age 65. There's some reasons where you delay it and so forth, but we won't get into that. And Medicare basically becomes your primary health insurance. And then you have a supplemental insurance and that sort of thing. But there is a cost to Medicare. So there's a lot of planning around that cost. The more income that shows up on your tax return, the higher premium you pay for your Medicare Part B. So when we're thinking about how income shows up on your tax return, there's a couple different ways that it shows up. You can use your assets or some of your money, and it may not show up on your tax return. So if you're holding a pot of cash in a savings account and you use some of that cash, that does not show up on your tax return. Using that cash does not show up on your tax return. Now, you might earn some interest from that cash sitting in a savings account, and that interest will show up on your tax return. But if you take $50,000 out of a savings account, that does not show up on your tax return. If you have that same $50,000 that was in an individual retirement account, you got a tax deduction for putting it in there. When you take that $50,000 out, that $50,000 shows up on your tax return. So then if you have a Roth IRA, you can pull that $50,000 out, and neither the earnings nor the money you use show up on your tax return. And then there might be income sources, and those income sources also may show up on your tax return differently. You have income sources from like a pension. That might be, that's going to be most likely ordinary income. You get $100,000 in a pension that shows up on your tax return. You might receive Social Security income. That income, let's say that's $50,000. Not all of that is going to be taxed. So there's only a portion of Social Security that's going to be taxed, and that's based on some of those other income sources. So if you pull out $50,000 from a savings account, then you have Social Security, you're going to have a low amount of Social Security tax. If you pull out $50,000 from an IRA and $50,000 from your Social Security, more of your Social Security is going to be taxed. So just hang with me for a second. And then you have your income sources from investments, and those are also taxed differently. So you have interest, which is taxed at your ordinary income tax rate. You have capital gains, which is taxed at 0, 15, 20%, and it may have something called net investment income tax on top of that, depending on your income. And then you have dividends, which can be ordinary, or they can be qualified. So you have all these different income sources and places where you can withdraw money that may or may not show up on your tax return, and that could impact the premium you pay for Medicare. So how you take your money out of your accounts will impact how much you pay for Medicare. And that's become a really, really hot planning topic nowadays. Like, hey, I want to do some Medicare planning. I want to make sure that my premiums aren't going up year after year after year, and I want to keep them at a certain level. How do I do that from an income distribution perspective? And what I mean by income distribution perspective is, where am I taking my money from? And if I'm using that money, how is it taxed? Because that's what determines how much you're going to pay for Medicare.